This is the Decision Point with Anand and Duri. And Anand, we have a lot to talk about. The NFL playoffs are now. We have teams that are excelling. We have teams that are already out of it and looking like, uh-oh, what is the future? What does the future hold for this particular team? We have a bunch of teams that are going to be vying for, particular draft picks. So we look at the draft order, who's teed up to get what they want in the NFL draft, who's teed up to be very disappointed in the NFL draft. We have a lot to discuss. Finally, we get another decision point coming at you. Chargers. I'm watching the Chargers last night flail around, and my daughter's celebrating. Oh, she celebrated big time when they stopped him on fourth down inside, on the Patriots end early in the game. She was unusually excited about that stop, and I was like, "You're exactly right to be this excited." That was a very, very important stop. And looking back at the game, you're like, "Oh my God, had they scored there, the whole game might have been different." But 6 sacks for Herbert. The offensive line was exposed, as we all knew it would be. You can't lose Slater and Alt and expect, Pipkins and these guys to just the Patriots don't even have a scary front seven, and yet they gave up 6 sacks. So this, I thought, was very validating. When I looked at the score, I was like, man, we've only been talking about this on the decision point for as long as I can remember, that tackle is like the most valuable position to be investing in the NFL draft in particular, unless you're very quarterback needy. If you don't really need a quarterback, just default to left tackle, and every year there's one that falls for whatever reason and is an incredible value, whether it be Sewell outside the top 5, which was ridiculous. But let's talk first about the Chargers. This was an exciting team during the year. They look really good. Herbert sustains the fracture in his hand and wrist, and they lose both their tackles. So what is the outlook for the Chargers in 2026? What do you think their goals are going to be in free agency, in the NFL draft? Kick us off, buddy.
Matt, good to see you. Been a long time. When it comes to the Chargers specifically, this is every year there's one team that it feels like gets totally grenaded by injuries at the worst possible time. Last year, we talked about the Lions, where their defense just completely fell apart. They were signing guys off of practice squads to start a DB for them. The same thing happened to the Chargers this year, and it just furthers our point from years and years of doing the show, where you can never have enough offensive and or defensive linemen. When you're the Chargers and you're Jim Harbaugh, his ethos from any team he's coached, college or pro, has always been, I will have the best offensive and defensive line in every game we play. And this year, I mean, with Slater and Alt, obviously they looked the part, but without them, it's a very tough hill to ascend, especially when you're talking about a postseason where you're going to see edge rushers, the likes of what Denver has and what Pittsburgh has.
If you're struggling against the Patriots front seven, it was never going to happen for you.
No. And, there's some truth to the idea that New England and Denver kind of ascended a year before we thought they might, where, we thought it might be a 3-year plan for both, for Bo Nix, and a 3-year plan for Drake May with these new coaches, but did not take them a ton of time. And, it's one thing when you have a quarterback that like a Justin Herbert or Drake May. Yesterday was a great example of this. So much of it is, can you just be upright and spend the time making the reads and making the throws? Drake May had the time to do it. Justin Herbert did not. It's not that we think that there's some giant talent disparity between the two quarterbacks, but you look at the product that they put on the field, and one of them was actively aided by their offensive line, and the other was trying to win in spite of it. I think it's another year where the Chargers figure out, hey, yes, we were without Alt and Slater. It's a huge loss for us. I mean, there is probably not a bigger one that you could have in terms of the two tackles other than your quarterback. But for them, I think it's just further evidence that you should invest in tackle and edge rusher, even when you already have them. They do not. You need two of them on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and more often than not, one of them gets hurt. You need three of at minimum edge rushers and tackles. And they only had two, and unfortunately for them, both of them got hurt. And so you saw the rotating tackle situation that they had last year, the year before that, as they tried to figure out the pieces of this offensive line, even investing high first-round picks in Alton Slater. That's just the reality of the NFL, man. It's a war of attrition in the playoffs. The healthier team often wins. And, a lot of that has to do with who do you have replacing, your best players. If your backup players are replacement level, like we talk about a lot, that's exactly what you can expect to get out of them. And quarterbacks are not going to have the time, even with New England's not so great front seven, as Matt talked about, even with a not so great front seven. If your O-line is basically replacement level at tackle, you are in for a world of hurt when you're playing really good teams that actually understand what they're trying to do and have 11 guys on the same page.
Before your favorite team brings in some sexy receiver or some sexy running back from free agency, answer this question. Do they have an above average third tackle? That's it. That's the question. If so, fine. You can start making some luxury picks, making some luxury moves. If not, that needs to be your focus. So what is the Chargers' focus this offseason?
I think that you've got to consider at least shoring up the back end in the DB room for the Chargers. You've got a lot. They have the luxury of having really good players at almost every position on the team, whether you look at like an Omari and Hampton that they drafted last year. You look at their receiver room, which they've upgraded. You look at, obviously one of the best QBs in the league in Herbert when the line looks good. This is the definition of luxury picking. The question is, if you go to the supermarket with an unlimited amount of money to spend, which obviously isn't the case here, but we're just going to run with it. If you just pile up on snacks, eventually you're going to have to go to the gym and work all that off. So it's the Chargers' time now basically to go to the supermarket and choose to continue eating healthy, even though they don't have to, instead of chasing the shiny new toy, whether that is, a first round wide receiver, whether that's a first round, tailback like they had last year, or I guess early second. But you've got a lot to work on in terms of making Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh happy. But all of it is depth stuff. It's not like I think there's a glaring need at any position. I think this team, much like the Lions last year, just kind of fell apart at the wrong time.
So looking at this, there are a couple players that jump out at you as not necessarily helping their teams much this year, and they were at the positions I just mentioned. It was Omari and Hampton at 22 and Matthew Golden at 23. If we look back at last year's draft, pick 22 Hampton, pick 23 Golden. Who came after? Donovan Jackson, offensive line, 24 to Minnesota. You have offensive line in Josh Connerly Jr., 29 to the Commanders. And then you have Josh Simmons, 32 to the Chiefs. And that's if you weren't going to go edge or safety or one of those other positions. So there were three linemen picked after Hampton and after Golden in the NFL draft first round last year.
Yeah, and I think when you look at that chart specifically, right, the guy that jumps out is James Pierce Jr., the edge from Tennessee. So even if you think you're set with offensive linemen, you can always have one more edge rusher to add to your rotation in the same way, because the odds are someone in that lineup is going to get banged up at some point. And if you have three edge rushers, you can rotate, or even three tackles, where when one of them goes down, if you have somebody that can play both left and right tackle, they're rare, but they're extremely valuable if you can even play at an average level on both sides, because you can kind of do some things, have a guard help, have a tight end help, and keep your offense afloat. But if there's one guy that they can just consistently pick on over and over and over again, that even with help gets destroyed by some of the better edge rushers in the league. You look at a Denver, a Nick Benito is a great example. A Max Crosby, if the Raiders put it together, a TJ Watt, all these great edge rushers, Myles Garrett. Any of these guys can totally wreck a game by themselves if your tackle needs help and still keeps getting beaten. So I think if you're the Chargers, I think investing in tackle makes sense. And then if not, you invest in an edge rusher. And if you don't think either of those positions are of value to you, then you go down your list and you make the luxury pick of saying, okay, we can take a wide receiver, we can take a running back, we can take someone else. And, I don't think that, especially looking at this draft class, that there's anything generational, so to speak, in terms of tackle prospects or edge prospects or anything outside of maybe safety with Caleb Downs, which obviously is not a position that you want to be taking in the top 5 most of the time anyway. You're looking at a draft class where a lot of the better picks might be made in that 20 to 32 range, just because the talent is so compressed in the top and the middle of this first round. Obviously, we'll see how the combine and the Senior Bowl and certain things shake out where these guys get drafted, but it's a great year to have, a late first round pick, because there will be still really productive players for you that are really good football players that are worth a first round pick, but that you don't have to spend up into the top 5 or 10 to get because their position value is so high.
James Pierce goes to Atlanta at pick 26 last year.
Yeah.
Traded from the Rams.
Yes, sir.
So they traded back in. They picked earlier, and then they said, no, we need another. And then so they gave up a lot to move up, get James Pierce. But even though you almost always, you're like, someone wants to give me a Godfather offer to get my first round pick, sold, right? That's our mantra. But just imagine if the Rams had Pierce.
Yeah. This is
I'll say that. I'll just say it, even though I would be the one that would have traded the pick, and I would be the one looking longingly. But that's just that you have you sometimes that pick is a dud, sometimes that pick is a stud.
Yeah, when you look at, I mean, he's probably going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. So anytime you trade that guy, there are going to be questions about, you could have picked this player. Yeah, but long term, it's about a process.
The process is, instead of picking a goddamn running back, you just go with offensive line or edge. That's it. Yeah. That's all I've ever said. Please do that, and you'll be fine. Okay,
if you want,
you'll be doing that. If you want to take a wide receiver because he's fast, right? And he has 1 year of production at Texas, and it wasn't even that eye-popping production, like 1/2 of a season where he was a featured receiver at Texas. Okay, you could do that. It's very speculative, Matthew Golden. You could go with a Marion Hampton, and the value add over a Kamani Vidal is fungible.
Yeah.
Or you could go with the clear and obvious move, which is just to say best available among these super valuable positions that where you have to draft them in this round, because by the time you get into the second round, yes, there's going to be a Harold Landry, and we talked about Harold Landry when he ended up going to the Titans in the second round from BC, and that was just absurd how he fell. Those guys are out there for sure, but normally by the time the second round opens up, the offensive line, the edge that you were thinking about or hoping for and could really be a difference maker is absolutely gone. When you look at the Patriots, the interesting thing about the Patriots is they seem to have a bunch of needs. They need wide receiver. They need edge. They need a bunch of things, but yet they're winning. Right? Yeah. So they're going to be drafting at the end of the first round. That's determined now. They're going to be drafting well into the 20s. And what do you think their goals are going to be in the draft and then potentially free agency?
I think it's probably easier. I mean, Diggs solved a lot of the wide receiver 1 questions that we had with New England. A lot of us questioned if he could still be that kind of player, and he obviously was for New England. I'm going to run a parallel. Obviously, we watched Bears-Packers, 2 nights ago. the way the Packers constructed their roster, that Matthew Golden pick is very fascinating to me. And I don't know how much we touched on it at the time, but you did so well with acquiring wide receiver 2s and 3s later on in the draft. And you had the guy. The guy was Tucker Kraft. Another one, injury ruined a season, but he does so much for that offense. We're starting to see tight ends as these mismatch pieces. And I'm not talking about a Kyle Pitts where he is basically a wide receiver that plays tight end. I'm talking about a true 3-down George Kittle, Tucker Kraft type player. Those guys can also help you in your run game, in your pass pro game. They can be, the safety valve for your quarterback. And so I thought it was super interesting that, New England and in Green Bay, two of the smarter organizations historically that we've seen in the last 20 years. Granted, some of the coaches have changed, some of the management has changed, but the ownership hasn't changed and their philosophies haven't. And so I think it was super interesting to watch them lean more towards the tight end side of things when it comes to how you're building out a pass catching room. And then New England obviously taking Diggs, and then the Packers at home giving the fans what they wanted, a first-round receiver, even though you and I, Cody, Alex, everyone that was there, were just like, what is this? What's going on here? I think
listen, the crowd went wild.
Yeah,
he
the
came
crowd
out,
did go.
He looked super fresh. I mean, the guy looked the part. And he was super cool about it too. Like he didn't look like the moment was too big for him. He looked right at home.
Yeah.
And that was a cool moment, but it was the wrong player.
Yeah. The fascinating part for me about New England is, will you let winning change your process? We see this with a lot of teams, because the NFL, if you look at it from a point spread perspective, if you look at it from a best team in the league to worst team in the league perspective, these teams are not 14, 15, 20 points apart, really, right? So any given week, if you're playing 7-point games, defensive points can swing a game. Special teams plays can swing a game. One bad fourth down decision, 2 bad fourth down decisions can totally swing a game in the NFL. And so the margins are ultra thin. Will you let Denver, New England are both great examples here. Will you let the fact that you're winning change your process? Will you sit there and say, oh, well, we might not need a wide receiver because we won 14 games this year? No. Go get the wide receiver. Go get a wide receiver 1, whether that's in free agency or in the draft. But don't overspend on it. Don't trade up into the top 7 or 8 to go get a Carnell Tate from Ohio State. Instead, take what the draft gives you. If it gives you an offensive lineman or an edge where you're picking, take him. If it gives you a wide receiver that you're comfortable with in round 1, take him at the bottom of the first round. More than happy to do it. But make sure that you have your priorities in order, where if it's better to take 2 lottery tickets in the second round and throw darts at, a wide receiver and an edge rusher, or a wide receiver and a tackle, whatever it is that they've identified as their kind of positions of need, which obviously wide receiver 1 will be one. And, edge rusher obviously is one. If the guy isn't there, don't get caught being the guy that's at the end of the bar. It's 1:30 a.m. and the lights are on, and you're in panic mode saying, oh God, I got to find something to take home. You do not want to be in that spot. If you're in that spot, trade the fuck out of there. That's your job. Don't get enamored.
I think the Patriots need to focus on edge rusher. They need to find a James Pierce. It's just so hard to get one in free agency, and it's so hard to get one outside the first round. That's the area of need that they have that has the most position scarcity, and they just need to lean into that. Matty Kiwoom on the latest mock, it's from November. He's going to roll out a new mock very soon. But he had Elijah Surratt from Indiana going to the Patriots, and that ship has sailed. That's why we have to do a new mock, because Surratt's going earlier now. So it's unlikely that Surratt will be there. Even if he was, though, I would rather stick with the process of saying, hey, you can find great wide receiver talent in the second and third round. Kyle Williams made a play. Right, doesn't necessarily even have to involve catching the football, and just that showed me a lot, like just overall spatial awareness, situational awareness. That was cool. to see Kyle Williams getting involved and contributing in a playoff game. I have very high hopes for fantasy with Kyle Williams moving forward, just because there is a possibility that the Patriots don't draft a wide receiver. And if you think it through, okay, if they don't draft a wide receiver in round one, you're going to have Stephon Diggs now well in his 30s, and Kayshon Boutte is a replacement level possession receiver. Kyle Williams would be the one that can actually really move the needle for that passing game. With Drake May, he's so good. I mean, it just,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's just I can see people getting very hyped up for Kyle Williams, and I think that it's a good idea to trade for him now if possible. If the Patriots don't go wide receiver in the first round, that trade's going to pay off in Dynasty big time. Even if they do draft a wide receiver in the first round, that's not the biggest deal, right? No. Most receivers take some time to develop, and their wide receiver room is super thin, and their passing game with Drake May is super prolific. So to me, that's an easy one. I think that the Patriots should focus on tight end in free agency. You go back through all the great tight end signings in free agency. There are so many, not just like Gronk to the Buccaneers, but it's like Greg Olsen and Martellus Bennett. There's just been a whole like laundry list of tight ends that did not break out until age 26 on their second team, and then all of a sudden, boom, there they go. I was hoping that could happen maybe for like a Noah Fant this year. Noah Fant fits the profile of a tight end that could do that. Another tight end that fits the profile that could do that is like a Luke Musgrave, where you can go into free agency, you can get a guy that totally disappointed when he had an opportunity, but the underlying profile still suggests this guy is a proper playmaking two-way tight end. And so I think that's where I would do my shopping at the tight end position, would be in free agency if I'm the Patriots. What about wide receiver? Let's say they do go edge, which they should in the first round. Do you think wide receiver in the second round?
I think it kind of depends on how the board falls for you, right? Like you don't want to move too much in the second round to go get a wide receiver when you have, like we've talked about, that record can blind you. Let's say, hypothetically speaking here, they make the AFC Championship game and lose, whether that's Denver or to whoever. Let's just say that that's how their season ends. That's a really successful season for year two, young quarterback. Year one that Vrabes is back. Emotions are high. We really did it. Like, we're back. We're the Pats again. No more of this 8-9 bullshit. Everybody's excited. What do you do with a team that profiles the way that they do, which is they win in a very specific manner? They're obviously a very good running offense. Drake May is exceptional. I don't even think we need to discuss much of that. And it's clear that he can carry a passing offense when needed, because I don't think anybody's accusing the Patriots of having a world-beating wide receiver room. Like, this is absolutely not the Bengals wide receiver room. It's an offense that you have a lot of confidence in. Yeah, I mean, Drake May explosive plays. EPX is first in the league. I actually did not know that.
Yeah, passing EPX number 1, overall EPX number 2 on Player Profiler, which compares him to Josh Allen. That's been the comp on Player Profiler all along. And when you're watching him, it's just eerie how similar he is to Josh Allen. It's like, oh my God, this is the next guy. The way he moves up in the pocket, the way he tactically makes decisions at the line of scrimmage to run or pass. And then when he does run, it's just, this is the next guy, man. This is the next guy. It's not Caleb Williams. It's not Jaden Daniels. It's Drake May. And from that draft class, what do you think the probability is that J.J. McCarthy breaks out and is good in the NFL?
I think that it's likely that he's probably a pretty decent QB given what's around him. But I think that I think it's unlikely that he ascends to the tier that our buddy Thor wants him to be in. Shout out to Thor.
Listen, as an Ohio State fan, I wanted to ask you that, because if you can be trusted to give an honest assessment of J.J. McCarthy. And the Vikings are just like, hey, we're rolling with McCarthy next year. We'll see what happens.
I think he'll be perfectly fine. Yeah.
What is Arizona going to do though? Because I'm looking at Arizona, and
Oh God.
they're picking at 3, right? Where they're picking at 3. So the Jets are going to be in the market for a quarterback. What always happens is we know Mendoza is going to go number 1 to the Raiders. What always happens is between now and the draft, a quarterback emerges. A dark horse quarterback always and forever emerges. It's very rare that we go through the whole process and know, there's always a Trey Lance. There's someone bubbles up into the top 5, and whoever else needs a quarterback other than the number 1 team usually ends up feeling pretty good about it. I mean, sometimes you're feeling so good about it, like the Patriots with May and the Commanders with Daniels. It's not going to be that kind of class, obviously.
Yeah.
Maybe next year is. But, it's not something that Jets fans should be worried about. I think they're all feeling, woe is me. We don't get the number 1 pick. We don't get Mendoza. And I'm like, trust me, someone is going to emerge. Someone is going to blow minds at the combine. I think Carson Wentz is a great example of a guy that rose up throughout the process based on his arm strength in these drills, in front of scouts. And then suddenly you get a guy from the Dakotas who's moving into like the 2nd spot in the draft. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, Carson Wentz, did he work out? No. But was he in the MVP conversation for a season? Yes.
Yeah.
So that you could do a lot worse if you're the New York Jets. Then you have the Arizona Cardinals, who had some prolific games from Jacoby Brissett, but Jacoby Brissett is not the answer. Even if you string together a bunch of great fantasy outcomes, if you've been around the league this long and you're still considered just a premium backup, and that is like what is your job title, that's what he should put on LinkedIn, then that team is necessarily in the market for a quarterback. So what is Arizona going to do at 3?
They are the team that is them and the Jets. They desperately want Dante Moore from Oregon to declare, because if he declares, then that solves a problem for them. Is he raw? Does he need a little bit more time? Yes. I would advise, if it's me, if I'm making the call, I would advise him to go back to school and get 1 more year at Oregon. That's what I would
Even though
advise.
next year is super competitive and he likely
Even
won't
though
be the
next
number
year
2
is super
pick.
competitive, except all of that taken into account. Because if you are going to go be the savior of a franchise, which Arizona and the Jets would both ask you to do, you need to know how to do the things basically automatically that NFL quarterbacks are asked to do. And right now, he's not there. Now, with an offseason of coaching and development in the right system, with the right QB coach, with receivers around him, maybe he gets it. We've seen guys get off to fast starts before that weren't necessarily that in college. But that is a huge ask of a kid that, we just saw Indiana systematically dismantle. It's hard. It's extremely difficult to play at that level in college, and it's even tougher to make that jump to the pros, which is why we have so many guys like that. I think will be the guy that I think will be the most intriguing to follow during this draft process in terms of quarterbacks. There are a lot of people that are interested in Ty Simpson, the quarterback from Alabama. I will put him to the side because he's kind of a tale of 2 seasons in terms of how he played. There might have been a nagging injury. There might be something that we find out later, but he looked like 2 different dudes depending on when in the season you look at him. The guy for me is the quarterback from Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss, that wasn't even supposed to be the starter, transferred from D2 Ferris State, took the world by storm, best Ole Miss season ever. He has all of the raw athletic tools that you want. He clearly sees stuff in structure well at times. It's just the question becomes, when you go from the SEC and the CFP to the NFL, everybody is bigger, faster, stronger. His body's type is, again, going to be the question. You have your Kyler Murrays, you have your Bryce Youngs. Is he big enough, and tall enough to hold up in an NFL pocket? But somebody, I think, is going to fall in love with Trinidad Chambliss. He's applied, and they're fighting eligibility for a 6th year at Ole Miss, but I highly doubt that he gets it. So I think that he is going to go on to the NFL draft, and I think he's the guy to circle as the some team is going to fall in love with this kid, his story, the way that he played, the way that he played his biggest and the biggest moments. The one loss of the year that wasn't in the postseason was to Georgia. It was his first road start. He put up 35, I think it was, on Kirby Smart's defense, came back and beat him. His coach left, and they still did that. Like, there's a lot to love about his story in particular. And I think that as we see these quarterbacks that change, Mendoza was at Cal, and our guy Corey Kynan did a great write-up on him preseason about how he thought that this was QB1 in the NFL draft for 2026 when he was transferring from Cal because of all the things that he could do in structure in the pocket. We're seeing a lot of these transfer quarterbacks now that have seen it and played at any level get to a high-level program and then immediately ascend and take off in a manner that we didn't used to see these guys transfer and take off. They would have to do that development in the NFL or, stay at a D2 school or an FCS school. But I think he is the most interesting player at QB in this class because somebody is going to fall in love with the athletic traits. We've seen it happen before. And, I think when he runs whatever he runs at the combine and when he does the little shuttle drills and does the passing, the throwing showcase, I guess we can call it, at the NFL combine, I think he's going to wow some people and somebody's going to fall in love, man.
If you disagree, let us know in the comments who you think is the most intriguing prospect in the NFL draft that has the most upside, that could make the biggest move throughout the process. Someone's going to make a big move, and NFL teams are going to get super enamored with that guy. Tale as old as time. Looking at the Cardinals, they were tied for third last in the league last year in sacks. So that tells me they're probably just going to be happy to just take Ruben Bain Jr. and check the box. Hey, we got our edge rusher, 270-pound edge rusher.
Yeah,
right. I mean, oh man, if the Patriots had access to this guy, how much they'd love that. So that's probably what they're going to end up doing. And then you've got some other teams here that already have their quarterback situation solved, Tennessee and New York. I'm assuming one of them will go Caleb Downs. The other one might go David Bailey. Just chalk. First, basically start off with two quarterbacks, Mendoza and quarterback X, whoever makes a run up the prospect rankings throughout the process. And then you've got, Bain, Downs, Bailey.
Yeah. I mean, I think eventually someone in that top five will take Arvell Reese, the linebacker from Ohio State.
I think he's going top five?
Yeah, I do. Okay. I do. And I think that he's another one of those guys where Ohio State didn't ask him to do some of the NFL stuff that he'll be asked to do. They're going to move him to the edge full time in the NFL, I'm assuming. Basically play him, deploy him in kind of the way that Micah Parsons gets deployed, not to make the comparison because, you don't compare players to future Hall of Famers. But I think that he's probably going to go in the top five. I think you could see the David Bailey is a really, really intriguing one. Started his career at Stanford. Great player. I mean, you're looking at all these guys. Ruben Bain was a transfer. David Bailey was a transfer. Mendoza a transfer. Quarterback X, whether it's Dante Moore, Trinidad Chambliss. The only one that it could be that was probably at his original spot is Ty Simpson. It's a new world out there, and all of these guys have experience. And I think the interesting part about this for NFL scouts and GMs as these guys kind of age into, well, they played at a high level at this level of football, and then they jumped to here, and they were still very productive and high level, is as opposed to our original thought of we want a lot of small school guys that are, in the middle rounds at offensive tackle, at guard, at interior D lineman, edge rusher, any of these guys where they haven't had the full strength and conditioning program that an SEC or a Big Ten team would give you. I think it's interesting now that they're getting an additional year in college, basically, where if they had, basically had some injury or something, instead of just going to the draft and kind of playing their fortunes out, they're transferring to a Florida State or a Miami or a Texas Tech or an Ole Miss and getting stuff on tape, Indiana, to put in one more year's worth of true NFL style film as much as they can. And, you've seen these guys. Bain was obviously a freak in nature. Akeem Mesidor, the other edge rusher from Miami, also a very good player. I don't think he'll be a first rounder because of age. He's 25, I think, but he'll be a very good NFL player as well. David Bailey. You're looking at all these guys, and it's interesting to see kind of the mix of how many of these guys are left over from like COVID year remnants, so to speak, and how many of them are actually supposed to be in this draft class or underclassmen that are declaring. So something to watch because obviously you're going to see guys in this draft from 21 to 25, 26 almost. And so that's going to be a fun kind of undertone or theme to focus on as we get closer to the draft.
This is the last year of the COVID remnants. Right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, they're obviously. Okay. Yeah.
What do you think the Browns are going to do?
The wrong thing, like they've done basically my entire life. There's just such a weight there from years and years of futility. And I've talked to Browns fans. I've talked to people that love that team, live and breathe and die that team. And, they've supported a product that we've told you that they know is subpar for years now. And they recently did something that leads me to believe that Watson will still be under contract next year. And then, they'll finally cut him at the end of next season, as crazy as that is. And, you've got Shador there who looked, okay at times. You've got Dylan Gabriel, who to me loved his game at Oregon, but I just do not see him as an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's going to hold up long term, especially not in that division. If you got him somewhere south where, like Miami, where he can just basically play point guard in the sunshine, that might be a little bit different. But I do not think that he's going to last in the AFC North. So I think that they have to look at quarterback. But again, they're asking the same questions that the Jets and the Cardinals are, which is there a quarterback worth taking in the top 10 of the NFL draft? And I think it's Mendoza and then a bunch of question marks. I personally would not push the button. I would take just about any other position. I think that, you're looking to trade out of there. If you're the Browns, you need a lot. I don't think that one player in the top of the draft is really going to change your fortunes there, especially if it's not a quarterback. So if it's me, I'm trading out of there and getting as much as I can for somebody who thinks that there's one player, whether that's a Caleb Downs or Arvell Reese or David Bailey, Ruben Bain, whoever it is that falls a little bit, that they think that they can go get and, basically be the Bucks when they added Tristan Wirfs. If somebody feels like they can, trade up and get the one piece to secure a Super Bowl, if I'm the Browns, I'm moving out.
Oh, yeah, it's a tricky spot for them. It's a real tricky spot. Offensive line, you've got Spencer Fano, but I mean, you've got Caden Proctor.
Francis Mauanoa, the kid from Miami, is another one.
Mauanoa, these guys are huge, right? I mean, he and Proctor are 6'6". Proctor's 360.
Yeah, big boy.
The other guy's 335. Maoga. So that would be an absolutely fine pick if that's the direction they want to go.
Yeah.
I think that's the move. If you can't trade out, that would be my recommendation. Now, Myles Garrett, can they move him? Because he's not really helping them. I mean, he's breaking records for a team that wants to lose.
Yeah. The tough part about Myles Garrett is this is one of those extensions that they gave out out of desperation. They needed a franchise player, and he fits the bill just about as well as anybody can. But there will be riots in Cleveland if you take away their savior. That's the only thing they had to root for all year was Myles breaking the sack record and Shador, breaking 200 yards. Like that's all they had to root for all year. I don't think that it's really much. I don't think it's really possible to trade him. I mean, I think there'll be interested parties, but that's a huge contract.
Dallas traded Micah Parsons and they were competing. The fans know that they're not competing.
No, but The real question is, if they are going to reopen a window anytime in the next 3 or 4 years, can you get a better player than Myles Garrett? I don't think you can. I think that if you could get meaningful building blocks for him, I would absolutely consider moving him. I just don't know that, given the contract, that you're going to get him. There is a very decent chance that his best football was played in 2025. And that's not to say a broken NFL record that is
He's amazing.
He's unbelievable.
He's amazing.
This
He's
is
amazing.
no shot at Myles Garrett whatsoever. He's an incredible football player and will continue to be. It's just I don't think that you're going to get that kind of production out of him going down the road, and that's what you're going to have to pay up for now.
Pretty much. If you have a superstar at this point in a rebuild, unless that superstar is either a left tackle or a quarterback, you're incentivized to move on, but there's all these other forces inside the NFL locker room, the fan base, the equity holders of the team. There's all these people with different incentive structures that may prevent the GM from doing the cool, cold, clinical thing. And then the other problem is it's not like his contract's of value. Like, so you're paying top of the market for a guy. You're then trading for the right to pay top of the market for an edge rusher. So you're not going to get as much as you could if this guy was still on a cheaper deal. So for a bunch of reasons, it's just they're just going to have to build around Myles Garrett. It's just by the time that they get competitive, he's probably not going to be that effective, which is just, it's the NFL. Most positions have a relatively short shelf life.
They're in some weird variation of the drafting a running back in the first round conundrum, where you know that the odds are that they're going to fall off a cliff by age 27, 28. And by that point, are you competitive enough to make that contract or, make that draft pick worth your while?
It's a tricky spot for them. And and also with Shedeur Sanders, I'm sure there's some people that think they should invest in Shedeur Sanders. Well, and I have no problem with that. I have no problem investing in the offensive line if you want to protect him. I have a problem if you want to go splash around at wide receiver. That's a mistake. But if you want to try to get a left tackle and see what he does with an upgraded offensive line, by all means, that's just the natural way to build a team correctly. So go ahead and do that.
Yeah, look at the productive pieces that they got as rookies last year too, by the way. Carson Schlesinger was getting all pro votes. Incredible linebacker that they got in round 2. You got Quinshon Judkins, who looked like the next big thing at running back until he got hurt. You got Harold Fannin, and he looked like one of the better young tight ends in the league. And I thought that he would be deployed very differently than they deployed him, but he was great too. Look at all the young pieces that they were able to, by years of stacking draft picks and getting everything together. The Browns had a great draft in 2025. The question becomes, how many times in a row can you do that? Because nobody's going to recreate Seattle's draft that's lauded over and over again, or who was the other one? The Saints 2017, I think it was, where, it was just hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. We tell you guys all the time that this is more about acquiring coins to put into the slot machine. It's about acquiring tickets to the raffle, so to speak, because even first round picks are going to bust. I mean, you go back to someone like a Chase Young, who I don't consider a bust, but injuries derailed his career. That was a first-round pick. Washington already had a great defensive line. They invested again with a Chase Young, and they got it. They had a really good D-line, but the rest of the team fell apart. And, I don't know that anybody at the time looking back would say that was bad process. It just didn't work out the way they wanted it to. I have no problem with that. The problem that I have is if you're drafting a John Ross at the top of round 1, or if you're drafting a Corey Davis at the top of round 1, like those are the kinds of questions where we're like, oh, well, if this guy totally explodes in the NFL, he's going to be a good player. Don't do that.
No. So thinking about tight end Harold Fannin and also Aronde Gadsden, you had these non-first round tight ends, small school tight ends, day 3 tight ends, multiple breaking out as rookies, which is rare. It's rare. And and if you're the Patriots and you're considering, because you have to upgrade front 7 and tight end for they have to do that. I mean, my daughter just seethes about the Patriots tight end situation. She's just like, is that another drop for Henry? And this, and I'm like, you're being unfair to Hunter Henry. Like, he's solid.
He was great this year, yeah.
He's solid. I mean, come on. And then she's like, no. So what about Kenyon Sadiq?
The tight end from Oregon.
Is he coming out?
Yeah, he will be coming out. He's a very good football player.
So maybe he'd be like the first round version of Gadsden.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's one of the very rare tight ends that I'd be comfortable taking in the first round. This is also just overall as a class, very compressed, first, second round in terms of talent. There are a lot of older guys that have produced over years. There are a lot of, you're not looking at a whole lot of, blue chip, so to speak, football players, but there are a lot of really good talents in the first round. I think he's among them. I would have no problem spending a first round pick on Sadiq. The real question is, how do you see the rest of this tight end class as you go down the list? And do you see value in that third round the way that, the Chargers did with Gadsden or the Browns did with Fannin, where you may not have to necessarily invest that? I know we talked about the Packers and Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, or, you look at the Raiders when they invested in Bowers, obviously. But, for me, if I'm the Pats, I'm calling about Michael Mayer. See if he wants out. See if Michael Mayer wants out of Vegas, and that is your ticket to basically a player that we know might have gotten real capital. He hasn't produced for them to the level that they wanted, but obviously that's also because Brock Bowers is just a freak.
Michael Mayer would look so great. As good as Luke Musgrave would look in a Patriots uniform, Mayer would look even better. So I think that is the move. Yes. So I was, I'm wowed by Sadiq. I think he'd be very intriguing on the Patriots, but follow the processes, go get Mayer or Musgrave. And actually, if you look at Fast Draft right now, the Origins tournament is live on Fast Draft. And so the top 10 ADP is Love, Mendoza, Lemon, Tyson, Tate, Moore, Boston, Haynes, Coleman, and then Sadiq at 10.
Yeah. I would advise against drafting Justice Haynes right now, because I think he just entered the transfer portal and just going back to school. But other than that,
what?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well,
yeah.
This is the problem when you have these way too early tournaments. That there is some risk that the guy you're drafting may not even come out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I drafted, I think, like 40 Origins teams last year. One of them did pretty well. But, still working. I'm not a best ball bro yet. We're still working through the process. But I wanted to ask, while we're on the topic, how did Fast Draft do last year? What are we doing long term? Kind of what's the outlook on how we did last year? Because I haven't seen a lot of that stuff yet. I've seen some of it, but not everything.
It's a very happy time for me. It's kind of unbelievable. So yeah, the entry fees grew well over 600%. We had some nice best ball tournaments and some good DFS tournaments, and we're proud of what we did in 2024. Like people were playing and having fun, but everything just hit a whole new level in 2025. We filled almost all of our tournaments. Those that were watching very, very carefully know that there were a couple DFS tournaments, one at the end of the year and one in the middle of the year, that didn't quite fill on Sunday for whatever reason. But to have that kind of fill rate for anyone that knows fantasy is, it's something to be proud of. So yeah, this growth that we had puts us in great position to, we just kicked off a new fundraise, and the fundraise is going to be helping us, with more customer acquisition, because the more customers we acquire, the more people play, the faster drafts fill. So we want to improve draft liquidity and add sports. So we want to have DFS going all year. So that's the whole thing, is with Fast Draft. And then The question is, do you just roll out NBA or do you do something more strategic? And our plan is not to necessarily roll out NBA as our next sport. The sport that actually correlates most closely with football and the NFL is the PGA.
Huh.
And that also smooths out your calendar. So you can have most weekends, you can have a PGA Tour DFS contest going on in addition to your best ball NFL. And so that's a great fit. And then you also have like market opportunities that present themselves like F1. F1's the fastest growing sport. There's not really a DFS F1 game that many people are passionate about, especially it's a real money one. There's one that is on the F1 website, but that's more of a free to play game. So there's some strategic opportunities that we have for rolling out new contests, and working with a bunch of new affiliates this year for to turn people on that are best ball bros or just love fantasy. We are a fantasy first shop. That is our mantra. We are fantasy first, and by leaning into that, it presents a lot of opportunity for us to distinguish ourselves. And yeah, we have this open investment round happening for accredited investors. Email me, matt@rotowonderworld.com. If you are an accredited investor and are interested in participating, or someone who might be interested in participating, now would be the time. January, we're really kicking this off hard, and fueling the growth. It's just an exciting time, man. I got to tell you. But also at the same time, I also want to commit to podcasting more. People ask, we need more Decision Point shows. We need more Sonic Truth shows. We need more Mind of Mansion shows. Boom, dropped a Mind of Mansion to kick off the year with Chev last week. Monday, boom, we're talking on the Decision Point. So yeah, this is and I've already lined up one RC Fisher for the Mind of Mansion, as you all probably imagined I would. So this is one of those years where we spent a lot of time building, and a lot of sweat equity, and now you get to start to reap the benefits of it, and it's a very cool feeling.
Dude, congrats. 1, 2. I mean, the updates in product from the test ones that we ran way back when to kind of what it looks like now, and even having a dedicated the D up tournament, the defense one. I jumped in there for a quick second. It's interesting because that's kind of an underserved part of our market. I know a lot of the shows that you do more talk about offenses and what skill position players we have for fantasy or for dynasty, but it is interesting to have that community, be a part of this as well. Cause I knew there are a lot of dedicated defense only IDP players. So
yeah,
it was
why
cool
not,
to get
man?
product as well.
Yeah, that's what I say. Why not? If they'll fill a tournament, like we already have the data on the defenders, so why not? It's not that hard. So but that wouldn't for a company that's not fantasy first, that kind of tournament would not be a priority. That's the difference, and that's where we could. So to be in such a great market where you can so easily differentiate yourself just by being passionate about one thing, like I said, it's a cool place to be. We do have some more teams to talk about here. The Rams. I know you love Sean McVay. You love the Rams. They're moving on. So what do you think their offseason priorities are? I know, again, some of these teams like the Patriots, they're still in it, and we're already talking about their offseason potential moves, what they need. But I'm interested to see, because the Rams, with Stafford getting older, yet he's is he the front runner for MVP, or is it Drake May? Because he was first team All Pro.
They're both right there. I mean, I don't know who they're going to give it to. They might even split it and say co-MVPs, which I would be totally fine with.
When's the last time they co-MVP'd it?
I want to say it was like Peyton Manning and somebody in like 2004.
So it was a long time ago.
It's a long time ago.
It's been like 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I mean, come on, man. Stafford over Drake May for first team All Pro. I mean, the first team All Pro quarterback needs to be a threat with his legs. That needs to be, and there's always a quarterback who's a threat with his legs, including Mahomes, who also puts up gaudy passing numbers. And then that guy is necessarily, because he's such a threat to run, he changes the whole defensive orientation, then that guy has to be your first team All-Pro.
I really don't think you can go wrong with either of them. They're just two different ways to play quarterback. That's why I think that the MVP debates where it's like, hey, let's tear down Drake May's season, or hey, let's tear down Matthew Stafford's season, are stupid. They're two really incredible QB seasons for two teams that, yeah, the Rams finished as the 5 seed, but that's one of the best divisions we've ever seen. Those may be the 3 best teams in the league for all we know, in the Niners, the Rams, the Seahawks, right? And then on the other side, you've got Drake May taking this New England team that nobody really thought was going to ascend to this level and putting the offense on his back at times when, we had questions. We still have questions about how good their number 1 wide receiver is, how good that wide receiver core is. I don't think we have the same questions about the Rams, when Nakua and Adams are in there, and you've got, now Colby Parkinson's in there at tight end, Higbee's back. You've got the kid Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. There's a lot, running back rooms that both are great. Both offensive lines have been very good. It's just a matter of, I think Drake May did more with his legs, and I think Stafford is playing quarterback, the more the way that quarterback has historically been played. I won't get on my soapbox about how
congrats. But you have one less element that can potentially extend a drive or whatever it is, score a touchdown. So
yeah,
we saw with the Bills. It's automatic. It's automatic when they're in short yardage. It's automatic when the Rams are in short yardage. It's not automatic. Matty Kiwoom, again, this is more than a month ago, was considering the possibility of the Rams going quarterback at the end of the first round, trying to pull a Jackson Dart, try to find a Jackson Dart, throw a dart on a potential dart, right?
I think I don't hate the idea at all. But the biggest.
What if Dante Moore falls there?
Oh yeah, yes, because you can set him. That's the ideal for me. That's the ideal situation for a Dante Moore, where you get your development either at Oregon taking snaps or at an NFL team learning from, an all-pro Hall of Famer, whatever tag you want to attach to a high-level quarterback in the NFL right now. Learn the ropes from him. I think that, you look at the Packers, and Jordan Love benefited greatly from sitting behind Rodgers, who benefited greatly from sitting behind Favre. We've seen examples of this over and over and over again, whether it's Rivers that got to sit behind Breeze for a little bit, whether it's, anybody that sits and then, that has the talent and then gets to sit and learn for a little bit seems to have an easier time adjusting to NFL game speed than guys that just get shoved in there. I think that would be a great fit for Dante Moore. I highly, highly doubt that he would ever be there short of some kind of pre-draft injury. I just think that the quarterback class is too thin. And there are too many
think
teams
that
need him.
Jordan Love would not be Jordan Love if he were thrust into a starting role right away.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that there are a lot.
He was a raw prospect coming out of Utah State, and being able to sit behind Aaron Rodgers. I know it's not that fun to sit behind Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers is not that fun to be around when you're a quarterback on the roster and not named Aaron Rodgers. But, it was such a Jordan Love loss that we experienced, where he put up 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, only 1 sack, no interceptions. On the surface, what an incredible performance. Putting the team on his shoulders. That's what the stat line says. But you watch the game and you're like, do the Packers have a solution to quarterback? And you're like, wait a second. Wait, look at the numbers this guy's putting up. How is this possible? Oh, well, you get a lot of yak from Golden here and there, and you somehow get a career game from Dobbs. Okay, maybe it could all shake out in the box score, but it's a loss either way. It's just, I was like, wow, look at that. Every Jordan Love, he performed well in every single metric with the exception of completion percentage, which is just so Jordan Love. It's It's so great. Because that is the one area he struggles he doesn't have pinpoint accuracy.
it's a fascinating. Jordan Love and the Packers in general are super fascinating. But to answer your question from earlier, what do the Rams need? DB. They need cornerback help badly. It is the Achilles heel of this team. Anybody that covers them, anybody that follows them, anyone that's a fan can tell you that it's been DB all year. It will continue to be DB. If you look at the 5 losses that they have on the season, they had significant leads in 4 of them. I think multiple scores in 4 different games that they gave away because, again, pass-only situation, your DBs are going to be on islands. They need, you need to be able to stop the pass in the NFL. And in times of need, they haven't been great at it. I mean, Carolina put up 31 on Saturday. Like, there are a lot of reasons that the Rams are, that they were Super Bowl favorites a lot of the year. I think they might still be at the moment. I didn't check this morning. But that's the Achilles heel of this team. And so, when you have an Emmanuel Forbes who, former first round pick that didn't work out in Washington, there's another one. But he's looked very good this year at times. You've got Akello Witherspoon that at times has been a DNP for a coach's decision. They've just been shuffling corners all year long. And it would be very nice to have stability there. Obviously, they traded Jalen Ramsey a couple years ago to Miami, but they need DB help, and I think that the end of the first round. Obviously, they also have Atlanta's pick from the James Pierce deal that we mentioned earlier, but one of those has to be a safety or a corner because they desperately need them. And when Quentin Lake was out this year, there was a drastic difference in how that team performed.
I would like to see Chris Johnson from San Diego State excel in the workouts and rise up. I mean, he's currently projected to be a second rounder, but there are going to be corners that move from second round prospects now into the first round based on how they test.
Yeah.
So he's one that I'm interested in. And then there's Colton Hood.
Mm-hmm.
There's Brandon Cece.
Mm-hmm.
How do you spell it? How do you pronounce his name?
I thought it was Cisse, but
is it Cisse? I don't know. I don't.
You follow these guys.
I don't follow South Carolina broadcasts that closely. Brandon Cisse. So there's going to be plenty of options for them at corner. That's a great call. I agree. That's what they should be doing.
So that's how they've lost games this year. Like, I mean, it's really simple. If you have a 17 game sample size, find the ways in which you lost games this year. Address those positions, and if they're big time positions, if they're edge rusher, if they're tackle, where you need to go get those guys. You've got to probably be in the top half of the first round for a real life changing edge rusher. Tackle, obviously, we've seen a lot of guys lately in the late half of the first round that have worked out. Josh Simmons at Ohio State last year to the Chiefs was a big one. We've seen guys.
Chargers could really use him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chargers could have used him.
Yeah.
Oh, we got Pipkins. We're okay. No.
Yeah.
So Green Bay does not have their first round pick. That is going to Dallas.
Dallas does.
Yeah. Well, if you want Micah Parsons, you got to pay up.
Yeah.
So Green Bay is not going to be solving any problems in the NFL draft, unfortunately for them. You got to think if you go out in the first round and you gave up a first round pick to make a run, you can't be happy. You cannot. It burns a little bit more. Those losses burn a little bit more when you're like looking up and like, oh yeah, we also don't have our first round. God, oh man, as a GM, you just get nauseous. You must just get so nauseous. 49ers are moving on. 49ers beat the Eagles, lost George Kittle, very sad. They lost Brandon Ayuk for the season.
Yep.
Whether or not Brandon Ayuk ever makes an impact in the NFL is up in the air at this point.
Yeah.
For the rest of his career. Yeah. So I hope Brandon Ayuk has a career, but anytime a guy misses a whole season like this, it's one thing if you're injured like in the playoffs. Right? Yeah. If you tear an ACL in the playoffs and then you just can't make it back, that's one thing. But now that there's got to be there's questions swirling about work ethic and devotion to the sport and all these things. And it may just be a personality clash. It may just be that the 49ers hate him and they were ready to move on, and they refused to activate. But I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. But it's a fascinating scenario that has unfolded there, where he just disappeared, and because they had some depth, they had Jennings, they had Pearsall, it wasn't top of mind in any given week. Where the hell is Brandon Ayuk? But then the season expires, and we're looking back going, oh, I guess there's no one, and he's not even being mentioned. Like, he's been disappeared by the team.
Yeah, it's extremely strange. We've had a couple of these seasons with the Niners where
they just black bag a player.
There's a very strange thing that I don't think Shanahan gets quite enough credit for. A lot of people have him on this pedestal of like, oh, he's this brilliant offensive mind. He's just an OC that's gotten it. There have been a lot of criticisms of Kyle Shanahan, but one that I don't think that you can make, and he doesn't get enough credit for, is his roster consistently falls apart late in seasons, and he's still winning with them. Like, we talked about last year, how good the Eagles roster was. And you could argue that Patullo was an incompetent OC, that Jalen Hurts was a limited quarterback. The roster was still very, very, very good in Philadelphia this year. And they didn't have devastating injuries. Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley. They're all out there. Everybody's out there, right? Not to say that they didn't have injuries like everybody else does, but the Niners had devastating injuries, right? Like, you had just last night, you have George Kittle, who I think is one of the most irreplaceable players in the league. He is one of the very few two-way, every down tight ends that exist in the NFL. They are very rare. They're worth their weight in gold. They make an offense go. There's no amount of, praise that you can heap on a guy like that is sufficient for what he does for that offense. They basically had to use Kyle Juszczyk in that role. I mean, they have other tight ends. Jake Tonjes is in there. There are a few other guys that they throw in there from time to time, but no one is George Kittle. And they find a way to go into Philly and win. But nobody gives any credit to Shanahan for doing that. It's just going to inevitably be, if they lose somewhere down the line before they get back to Santa Clara for the Super Bowl, someone's just going to be like, oh, Shanahan blew it in the playoffs again. We have to consider all of these things. The Chargers had the same problems and looked like an incompetent football team. They couldn't even move the ball yesterday against New England. At some point, we've got to give the Niners credit for what they've built. But also, if you know that you have real position scarcity problems, there just isn't a tight end that replaces Kittle. I think you have to have a considerable backup tight end that you can at least plug and play to an extent. Obviously, they had some wide receiver problems with Ayuk as well. I don't think that they should be out of it in terms of drafting high in the second round or into the third round, getting another receiver in there at some point. And then you've also got to consider the writing is on the wall for McCaffrey. Who knows how long he can continue to do this, taking that many hits at his age. So I think you've got to consider investing in running back. You've got to consider investing in wide receiver, and you've got to consider investing in tight end because Kittle's only getting older too. This is the problem that we foresaw with Purdy, is a lot of the depth of your roster that you could afford before is being stripped out over and over and over again as the seasons progress, which is how you get to kind of a situation where Kansas City was this year, where you need a full reset, get the right players back in. You need to go find a wide receiver one if you're Kansas City. I think in the same spot, New England could find themselves there. You're seeing the Niners roster-wise kind of find themselves there. The NFL empires do not last as long as you think they do. New England broke everyone's brains. The window is much shorter than you think it is. And, everybody likes to say to a team, oh, we'll be back. They'll be back. They're young. There's no guarantee that you're back anywhere. Ask the Lions.
Regarding the injuries to the 49ers, I have seen a conspiracy on Twitter X. Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
Are we talking about the electromagnetic field?
Yes, the substation that's right next to the practice facility in the stadium.
So you've heard about this?
Yes, I have.
You've heard about this. So this is the post. Okay. This is from @living_energy. Peter Cowan. Don't know Peter. Low frequency electromagnetic fields can degrade collagen, weaken tendons, and cause soft tissue damage at levels regulators call quote unquote safe. And yet we have real world case studies proving that is not necessarily the case. An NFL team whose practice facility sits next to a massive electrical substation is the 49ers. And if you scroll down, he circles an electric substation that is actually closer to the practice field than it is the actual field. So it's directly adjacent. And so that is currently being floated as a problem for the 49ers.
I think that there are wilder conspiracy theories out there, but
I've heard wilder ones.
I've heard wilder ones too, but this
electricity
was
is not to be fucked with, man. Electricity is dangerous.
You know, like my question to people that throw things.
Do you want to live under an electrical wire? If someone said, "Hey,
no,
by the way,
no, absolutely not.
The electric company wants to run power lines over your house. They just need your permission. You sign on the dotted line. There's going to be power lines over your house. NBD. If you don't sign, they won't do it. It's up to you. You can just choose one way or the other. What would you choose? You would choose no electrical wires over your house.
Yeah, the thing
there's
is,
a reason why in any development,
you don't think that they've
the house next to the big electrical pole or the big electric substation, or that might be the closest to giant transformers, is available at a discount.
You don't think the $1 billion franchise has considered this? Cincinnati gets a lot of shit for not having an indoor practice facility, which we've ragged on them for before. But I'm saying, as a $1 billion entity, you don't think that they've thought this through and like actually done some research about where they're putting their practice field? You know, like
maybe. Coach, I didn't hear the play you called there over the loud humming that is just pervasive throughout every practice all day, every day.
I mean, you know, the Bears are potentially moving to Northwest Indiana now, so we'll put the Bears and Gary right next to the steel plant at this point. There's a lot more that I think that the Niners have done in terms of actual research than the guy on Twitter that is putting out conspiracy theories. But you know what? Wilder shit has been proved true.
I will tell you this.
I will sit there and say that I am not saying that he is a total hack, but imply what you will.
I am very happy that we have two things: GPS technology and social media technology. Social media plus GPS has brought some delightful posts that have made me go, and most of the time you come to the conclusion of like, well, that would also mean, if true, that this team is just full of incompetent landscape planning, right? Yeah. To a level that we've never seen before. Like, so it's very far fetched, and yet they're fun. They're fun posts. When you stumble across these posts, they're fun. It's a fun thing to think about. Oh my God. What if?
This is, I agree. It is hilarious.
It is very strange how injured the 49ers
it would
are getting
be really
every year.
funny if that was the oversight, right? Because there are things, you know, and even saying what I just said about, you know, you don't think $1 billion franchise has considered this. You see some of the videos that are shared at like a FedEx field in Maryland, where Washington plays. And, you know, you've got people being dumped sewage on. You've got, you know, banisters breaking. Like, this is a multi-billion-dollar organization. There's no way that, you know, in your mind, in my mind, and everybody's mind, there's no way that $1 billion organization that employs that many people has the lack of oversight to ever have something like that happen. And yet, here we are with it happening. So I don't want to be the one to go out there and call this guy a 2-bit hack. If you do a little bit more research on the guy and what he's actually pushing, there's a lot more to that. That's just
I
kind of
don't know anything
funny.
about him.
Yeah,
This just came across my desk. Billy sent it to me. He's a big 49ers fan. He's like, check this
shout
out.
out to
This is
Billy.
funny. And it's just funny. It's just a funny, interesting little thing. And I wanted to make sure that everyone in this audience was aware. Because here's the thing, man. And I get reminded of this regularly. Hey, I'm listening to your podcast, but you can't assume that I am on Twitter all day. I'm not. Like, I'm not on social media all day. X, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the latest memes. I don't know the latest, what's happening with fantasy receipts. I'm not fully up to speed on this. Catch me up, please. Catch me up on this stuff. And I'm like, hey, man, this is one of the great things about having a podcast. I can get you caught up. No problem. I'm your guy. I will get you caught up on it. I'm not going to jump to conclusions, but I'm just, I'm going to ask questions. We'll put the information out there. We'll let the public decide. I have takes on football.
Yeah.
I don't have takes on electricity. I think that's the difference. You want to talk to me about who the Panthers should be drafting, what they should be doing in the offseason? I'll have a take on it. What is your take on the Panthers? What should they be at? What should their focus be?
I think they have a very unique case of going from being a cellar dweller to actually legitimately contending. Like having some pieces that they didn't know were necessarily pieces. Mike Jackson's a great example, the DB who did a fantastic job most of the day, whether it was on Nakua or on Devontae Adams. Bryce Young looks much better. Teteroa McMillan, obviously first-round pick that absolutely worked out for them. Jalen Coker, the UDFA.
Can we please talk about Jalen Coker, who is best comparable to Michael Wilson?
Another one, right? Michael Wilson, 3rd-round draft pick for the Cardinals, and they got Michael Wilson 2.0 undrafted at a Holy Cross. Shout out to Jalen Coker, man. That's
absolutely amazing. I mean, the 2 player pages we looked up today, one it was Drake May, best comparable to Josh Allen. The other one was Jalen Coker, best comparable to Michael Wilson. I'm a cokehead, man. I'll admit it. I'm a cokehead.
It's the best. But you look at this roster, and there's probably a need for one more receiver. You'd love to have like a real, I know they have JT Sanders and a couple other guys in the tight end room. You hope one of them breaks out, but they've built a really solid roster. You probably want some linebacker depth. You probably want some D-line depth. You never have too many corners, especially someone that can play nickel for you. And then, from there, it's just more offensive, defensive linemen. I think, you've linebackers, more of the defensive side for them as they kind of shore up the offense and kind of, put together the pieces for a long-term run. You have your clear one in McMillan. That's no question there. Both tackles, pretty fucking good. They played really well this year. Yeah. Bryce looked like the guy. I mean, offensively, I don't think you need a ton. You got a running back in that we kind of waved the flag for a few times on various player profiler pods. Our boy Chuba Hubbard. But there's a very healthy roster in Carolina, and they're the team that I think is most poised to make that 8-9, 9-8 jump to the 12-5 realm next year, because I think they've got. You look at the roster in the same way that we're identifying real points of need for the Rams, real points of need for the Niners, and for the Patriots, and even the Broncos. They don't have a ton of needs. It's just you would like to get better at certain positions than they are, but I wouldn't call them pressing needs where it's like, oh my God, you're going to have a giant hole at DB like the Rams do, or you're going to have a huge problem at edge rusher like New England does. I think overall the roster's good. I think that, Canales and what he's built there, and, you've got a lot of really smart people in that building, and the NFC South was just kind of a who is left standing last, and they were the last team standing. I think a lot of people thought that it would be Tampa. They faded down the stretch, and Carolina took advantage. I think they're a really solid team that doesn't necessarily have a ton of holes, and you can just kind of, the same way that we've talked about some other teams, draft the best player available at a position that has high value.
They need edge.
Yeah.
That's what they need. They need edge. I think they'd be really happy if like Keldrick Falk, for whatever reason, fell to them.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
they'd be really happy with that. The guy's like 270 pounds.
Freak show.
But then I think the chalk move would be like TJ Parker. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, yeah. So Matty Kiwoom had the Carolina Panthers drafting TJ Parker. This is their need. Mm-hmm. This is their clear need. We know this is their need. This is similar to the Patriots. Like, they need tight end. They need edge.
Yeah.
They need a little receiver depth. Like, it's like the Patriots. It's like, hey, these are similar. Like, Horn and Gonzalez. Like, these are similar, except the one glaring difference is the quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. You're like, imagine if you did a shrink ray on Drake May, but then also made him less athletic. So it was a shrink ray, size and athleticism shrink ray and then basically do that to the quarterback, and then that's basically Carolina is New England.
I saw our buddy Max threw something out there that I thought was hilarious during Carolina's playoff game on Saturday, and he goes, "God, it's like Joe Burrow if you cut him off at the knees." That's what it is. Yep. It's Bryce Young compliment. I was dying laughing at that one because he does have some Burrowisms to his game. There's a lot to really, really like about the way he throws a football, but man, it's just there is a definite cap ceiling because of the height, and it's just a thing, man. You gotta live with it, and he's found ways to kind of mitigate that problem. But one more edge rusher that gets him one big stop a game certainly won't hurt.
Yeah, I like with that quarterback. I mean, they could absolutely make it to the divisional round. Like, so, hey, go all in, Carolina. Go all in with that quarterback. Feel free to go all in, and you can get one round further, and that's pretty much the end.
Yeah, I think I struggle to find that Bryce Young wins a Super Bowl, but I mean, hey, Russell Wilson did it, so yeah, there's precedent, I suppose.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.